So obviously, we got back from Costa Rica recently. If you didn't know that, we went on a trip there. I'm trying to think. We flew out Tuesday, July 8th, and got back Tuesday, July 15th. So we were there for a week doing ministry and able to serve in different capacities. So I have a slideshow. You'll get to see a bunch of pictures. Pictures are always sometimes better than just hearing, so hopefully those will be a blessing. But again, we were in Costa Rica. We were in there in July. It was Elizabeth, myself, and then it was Luke and his family to partner actually with a church in Wisconsin, Geneva Lakes. They came down to help as well. So it was two churches represented to help in Costa Rica in different ways for a ministry trip. So my first picture is Pastor Luke. You all, of course, recognize that face. On Wednesday evening, so we got there Tuesday, but on Wednesday evening, we had prayer meeting at, I'm going to pronounce it, I know for Spanish speakers this is not the way to pronounce it, but I'm going to pronounce it in an easier way so I don't have to think about it so much. So I'm going to pronounce it Liberia. And so the Reformed Baptist Church of Liberia in Costa Rica, so Luke was able to preach. If you don't know, Luke preaches in Spanish. So he's able to preach in Spanish, and so he didn't need translation. That's why there's no one next to him, because he's preaching in Spanish. And so that was a great time. It was really encouraging. That was our first time to be with the church. And obviously, as you know, on a Wednesday night, it's not everybody, but it was an encouraging opportunity to be with the people. And I know Luke was encouraged to be able to preach that evening. Pastor Adrian was somewhere else because he was translating, and so Luke was able to step in to preach. I should have said this at the beginning, but if there's any questions as I go through, if you want clarification on something or me to add anything extra, feel free to raise your hand. I'll try to add to anything that you might want to know more. And then, of course, I'll have time at the end, Lord willing, to answer more questions. So that was Wednesday night. Then on Thursday, which was one of my favorite days of the entire trip, I have a lot of pictures from this. So on Thursday, we went out to do Bible distribution, evangelism, and then we had a prayer meeting in Bagaces at one of the churches, one of the Reformed Baptist churches in Costa Rica. And so these are some of the pictures, as you can see, of us sharing. This is Pastor Luke. This is one of the pastors from the church in Wisconsin, Pastor Chris. There's Judah right there tagging in. And so you can see we are, the goal of Pastor Andres, who's in Bagaces, and Heart Cry, if you ever want to watch more, has done 2 documentaries on the church, one particularly on Bible distribution. But their goal is in Bagaces to get a Bible in every house. And not just by mailing them, not just by dropping them on their front porch, but by also trying to have a conversation with every single person in Bagaces and giving them a Bible. And so this was a great time. I'll share more about that. But that's basically what this was. This is one of the brothers from the church, the man in the white shirt right there. So he was able to come out with his wife. And then this is Pastor Adrian right here, if you can kind of see with the beard. And then Tim, one of the deacons from the church in Wisconsin. And then I think, I'm not sure if that was his son or not, I can't remember, but one of the men from the church in Wisconsin as well. And then you'll see more pictures. Again, 2 people from Wisconsin, Pastor Adrian, more people up there sharing. This is myself, and then this is Pastor Andres and Trevor. That was our group doing Bible distribution and evangelism. Let me go on. So here's basically the whole group of us, for the most part, all of us that went out that Thursday to share. Here's the group that I was with, myself, Trevor, and Pastor Andres, and then that was a picture after the prayer meeting that we got to have. One of the nice things about sharing in Costa Rica and doing Bible distribution is it seemed to be, maybe I got the impression that it's a lot easier to go up to people's door and they're just ready to talk to you than it would be in the U.S. And so that was really nice, very willing to talk to us, very open to conversation. One thing that was very neat, I'm thinking I'm going to have to do it through translation the entire time. And the second person we talked to spoke English. And so I got to share the gospel with him in English, which was very nice that I got to speak it in my own language. But this brother right here, Pastor Andres, he was fantastic at translating. I also preached for him on the Lord's Day, but he was fantastic at translating, and so it was very nice having him as someone to go out with and share the gospel. He did a fantastic job. Let me just see my slides. So that's what we did, and then like I said, that night, Pastor Chris Law, who's right here, hopefully you can kind of see my fingers, but right here, Pastor Chris, he gave the sermon that night, and so he preached for the church, and he did something on love from 1 Corinthians 13, and so he preached for the church, and then we had a time of prayer. So that was Thursday, being able to do that. It seemed like everybody had very good conversations, lots of Bibles were passed out, and Heart Cry has given them resources to purchase a bunch of Bibles, and Heart Cry Ministry, Paul Washer's ministry, has given them a lot to be able to do this. Any questions? Okay, I'm seeing questions, yes.
I saw a lot of bars and windows. Is this a high crime area?
I think a little bit, but I'm not exactly sure why they had those, because also other houses didn't. So it seemed like maybe that was just the design of some houses and not necessarily because of crime. Because some did, some didn't from what I remember. So if it was because of crime, you would think every single one would have it. But it was just some. So my guess, it was more just how some people had their house set up. So, yes, sir.
Are there very many English-speaking people in the congregations?
I would say in Liberia more than Bagaces. In Bagaces, Pastor Andres, he speaks English, of course, because he's doing translation. His wife was born in Buffalo, New York, so his wife's an American. And so, of course, she speaks English. She speaks both languages. And then there was another lady that did speak some English from that church. But in Bagaces, it's less than Liberia. In Liberia, I would say there's more people at that church that speak both Spanish and English. So, yeah. Anything else about the Bible distribution or prayer meeting or anything related with that and what we did or how it went? Yes, ma'am.
Did you have anybody that was a little bit hostile to receive the Bible?
No one was hostile. I think in a Latin American context, it's hard for them. It's not really a hostile culture. So probably the one who was the most hostile, which he wasn't really, but Roman Catholicism dominates that area. And so the false religion of Romanism is very big there. And so we had a man who just kept talking somewhat about that and what he believed in terms of his Roman Catholic religion and faith. And so that was a little bit hard to make him understand, but you can't clean yourself up. You can't be good enough because he had some of that mentality. So that was the hardest one of trying to help him understand that we're not just saying the same thing. We're saying two different things because we have two different views of salvation. So that was probably the hardest one. Andres, I think, did a little bit more with him because obviously if I'm speaking to him in English, I can be more heart-to-heart with him. But Andres, because he knows both languages, was able to, I think, press him a little bit more to think about the differences. So that was probably the hardest one that I would say. Yes, sir.
What version Bibles are you giving out?
Yeah, so they give out what's called the Reina Valera, it's basically the equivalent to the King James or New King James in Spanish. People know it sometimes as a 1960. That's kind of the shorthand for it. I have a bunch of Spanish speakers right here, so I have to be accurate in the way I refer to things. Basically, this whole row is Spanish speaking. But yes, so that's the one they give out, which is a very good translation. It'd be very similar to what we use in the New King James, but probably a little bit closer to the King James Version because it has a little bit of older Spanish, but at the same time, still, of course, understandable. But I would say they also, Trinitarian Bible Society, which is a well-known Bible society, they did a slight update of it, and actually someone gave me their copy of it, so I have it at my house. They tried to slightly update the Reina Valera to keep the same text, the Masoretic text and the received text, but also have it a little bit more updated. So, yes, sir.
Do you know what version of the Bible is used in the Roman Catholic Church?
I don't. No, I don't. Not in Spanish. I don't.
The American Standard or the Revised Standard?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you find any believers or people?
Talking to people? Yeah, so the guy that I could talk to English with, he made it seem like he didn't really know. And then at the end he said, oh yeah, I go to church and go to an evangelical church and all that. So I don't know if he was just being nice because I'm a gringo, or he just or he just was okay with me talking to him, and he just wanted to hear what we were going to say before he gave off his piece. But he seemed to be a believer, and Andres got to talk to him, Pastor Andres, a little bit more, which was good. So yeah, I think that was the only one I remember that seemed to be pretty open. I mean, other people might have professed a little bit, but he seemed to be the most maybe genuine about having true relationship with Christ. I love Q&A, so we can keep going for this. This is fine. I don't have tons of slides, so.
Any sense that any of them might try going to his church?
Yes, so actually Pastor Luke told me, I didn't get the name, I'm not sure if he knew, but someone after the Bible distribution thing started coming to the church. So they were encouraged by that. Pastor Andres, though, this brother again right here, because his in-laws live in New York, they go to the U.S. for 1 month every year. So the same day we were flying out back to the U.S., they were flying to the U.S. So he wasn't, but he'll go back. He pastors with his dad. So this is Andres' dad right here. I know it's a smaller picture, but he pastors with his dad, and so his dad will just take over the main duties while he's away. But that's very encouraging. They both were very sincere, godly men from all I could tell, and it was very encouraging being with them. And so, yeah, they pastor together.
Brother, did you do this both in Bagaces and Liberia?
No, so in Liberia, and you did the Spanish way, I like that. Liberia, yeah, it's hard for me to say. Anyways, Liberia, we didn't do Bible distribution there. So we did not.
Okay.
But Pastor Luke, and I think even Pastor Adrian, but I think Pastor Luke was wanting to hopefully do it at some point there as well. But the Bible distribution was only in Bagaces. They've been doing this, I think, for a few years now, trying to give out Bibles. I can't remember the number, but my thought is they've given close to 1,000 Bibles out in homes.
Yeah, I've never been to Bagaces yet, but what was their kind of target sphere of, I mean, is it where their church is? I don't know what the size of the city is. Do they have a target, like geographical kind of thing that they were thinking where they could reach people that could come to the church? Or
Right. Yeah, great question. And for clarity, I don't know about the 1,000, so don't quote me. That's just a rough guess from what I was thinking.
Okay.
But their goal, so they had already basically gotten Bibles all throughout where their church building was.
Okay.
And so we went about a mile down the road, I think. So still pretty close. But I think their goal was, Bagaces isn't that big of an area in Costa Rica. So I think their goal is just to get all the houses in that area. And if they're in Bagaces, they're very doable to get to the church building. And people pick up, I know the pastors sometimes pick people up. So very doable. So that's their area. They're not thinking about other areas, but their area where God has planted them. Yes?
Do you know if they have a certain way of tracking what houses they've been to?
Yeah, so they really try to keep at least a mental count or someone writes it down. Because Pastor Andres was very much of, okay, let's make sure we remember where we went and we didn't go to this house. So I think they have a way where they at least remember where they've gone, where they haven't, to make sure they're not. I mean, I guess it's not the end of the world to double dip, but I think they try to say, okay, we've gone here, let's not go back. So that's, yeah, they try to keep a tab on that. And that's why he knew that they already went around their church building and they had to go farther out because they've already given everybody in that area a Bible. All right, well, continue to ask questions, please, but let me just move on a little bit. So Geneva Lakes, one of their big projects when they came down, the church in Wisconsin, was to paint the church building in Liberia. As you can see, it was kind of this light blue color at first, and this is their process of doing it. You can see this wall getting more of a tan, and then you can see, hopefully you can see well enough, but you can see the finished product. Came out very nice, a nice kind of tannish brown color. Looks very, very nice. So that's the finished product of that. So that was a big project they had to paint the church building, and I think it helped just to give it a new fresh coat. And I guess maybe Pastor Adrian or someone asked that would be a good color. I'm sure they talked about that to do it more like a tannish brown. Then this was also on Thursday. So so on Thursday and Friday the church was painting, and on Thursday when we had our men's Bible distribution, so it was all the men who did that. The ladies had a ladies' fellowship at the church, and they were able to get together and have some teaching and spend time together. So that's Elizabeth. If you didn't see her, I had to point her out. That's her. She was there with me in Costa Rica, which was great. And then just all the different people from different churches too. So not just from the church in Liberia, but also from, So this young lady, she was from the church in Bagaces. I'm not exactly, and then a lot of people from the church in Wisconsin. So church in Wisconsin right here, Pastor Chris's wife, another lady from the church, Pastor Chris's daughter, from the church in Wisconsin as well. I don't think I see anyone else. Oh, then you see Harper. There's Harper right there. I think they enjoyed that time to be able to be together and enjoy fellowship and some teaching and all of that. So that was the ladies group who was able to enjoy Thursday night together. And that was at the church in Liberia. Any questions on anything at this point? All right. Then on Friday and Saturday, so kind of Friday evening and Saturday morning, they had a family/kids camp that was hosted by the Reformed Baptist Church of Liberia, and it was actually at one of the members' houses, Fernando, if you recognize that name. But they did teaching for the kids and for the family. They had different arts and crafts. They also had fun games, if you can see this picture, and this was for the adults a little bit, because that's the adults playing a game. It was basically throw a balloon and try for it not to fall down. I guess you could say, I don't know what that game would be called, but they had fun with that. So this was Friday and Saturday. I have more pictures. There's Pastor Chris from Wisconsin teaching, and the group just kind of teaching time. And this lady, Priscilla, was doing the translation. She knows both. She goes to the church in Liberia. She knows English and Spanish, so she was able to translate. And so we had that. So that was the family conference. It was, again, Friday night and Saturday morning. I see your hand. I'll be with you one second. And so, it was just a great time of the kids being able to learn, and also great time where they were able to have fun together. And then I think basically all the parents were there for the most part. So that's why I call it a family/kids camp. It wasn't your typical VBS where it should kind of drop them off. It seemed to be everybody was there and doing it together. So
What did they teach on?
they taught just basically just the gospel through a series called 2 Ways to Live. They just basically were teaching on gospel truth. So it was a good time. Enjoyed it. Definitely hot outside, but you got the shade because you had under this little canopy, and then all the outside activities where you saw them playing was just like right here, like right outside. So it was a nice time. And then some people spent the night there because they had places for people to spend the night. We didn't spend the night. We went back to the Airbnb, but I'm thankful for that. But that was the dynamic there. Anybody else have questions about the family or kids camp, what we did, different things? Yes.
How were the kids, I guess, compared from there to here, behaved, or they well behaved? Do you have any thoughts or feedback on, I guess, the structure in that church?
Yeah, I guess it kind of, that's a very interesting question. I guess it would depend on the family somewhat. It's hard to give a complete blanket answer. It did seem like some of the kids had a little bit more liberty to kind of just run around, do their own thing, maybe than they would here. But it would depend on the family and kind of their family structure. So it's a little hard, especially for my first time ever going there, to give a real definitive answer about that. But at the kids camp, it seemed like everybody was doing well. I didn't see any like craziness or big tantrums or anything like that. One kid, but he was very young. I think it was just overwhelming for him, so he got a little bit emotional and whatnot, but that was probably just because he's young. It was a lot. His mom said later that, it was probably too much for him to do something like that. But the kids seemed to be at the camp pretty good. They were enjoying it, having fun, so. Yes, ma'am.
How many families came, roughly?
That's a good question. My guess is maybe 12 to 15. That's my guess. 10 to 15 maybe, rough guess. Seemed like there was maybe 30 some kids, maybe 30-ish, so. All right, anything else about that? All right, very good. Well, Pastor Luke wanted me to add this because I guess the singing he thinks has really improved. And so hopefully I can play this. This was a video I recorded. I just kind of turned around and recorded the people as they were singing. So let's see how well this comes out. So there that is. Does any of the Spanish speakers recognize that hymn or song? No? Okay. But yeah, we sang that, and so so we got to sing. This was on Saturday night they had a family conference, and so Pastor Chris Law from Wisconsin and one of their deacons, Tim, preached. So Pastor Chris preached basically on the roles of husband and wife and how they're to interact with each other in a God-honoring marriage. And then the deacon Tim, he preached on family worship and the importance of bringing up your children in the Word and making family worship a priority. So those were the two sermons on Saturday. Also at the Reformed Baptist Church of Liberia, they had that conference. Now, the Lord's Day, which was probably our most busy day of ministry, possibly at least. This was, obviously you see Pastor Luke. He was asked to preach at a church for the deacon ordination of Amos, who was ordained to be a deacon at the church in, I'm going to try my best to pronounce this right, Orotina in Costa Rica. And so you can see, obviously Pastor Luke preached. There's a picture of the congregation and then the brother being ordained to the office of deacon. And so he was able to preach for that. Very sad story in a sense, because his father, Amos's father, who, if I got my information right, this is where it would be helpful to have Luke here, but that's okay, was a pastor of that church and had passed away not long before, or I think not long after his son maybe was nominated to be a deacon. And so it was definitely a bittersweet time, but I think it was very encouraging that Luke was able to go and be part of that, and I'm sure his dad would be very proud of him serving in that office. So that was on the Lord's Day. Luke got to do that. He had to leave the Airbnb super early, but he made it because I think he had a 3-hour drive to the church from our Airbnb. And so, but by God's grace, he made it, was able to preach for those brethren. And then I got to preach on the Lord's Day, which I was super excited about. This was a great opportunity. So this is, you see Pastor Andres, who I was talking about earlier, the one who translated. The thing that was unique about me preaching there is because I'm sure he felt it a little bit more because Elizabeth knows both languages extremely well. So she's hearing it in both languages. She's hearing English and then Spanish and knows them both extremely well. But she said he translated it perfectly. And she even said that he preached in such a way that what I wanted to emphasize, he emphasized. And of course, Elizabeth has heard me preach a lot, so she knows what I'm trying to emphasize. And she's like, yeah, he was emphasizing just what you were wanting to do. And I was teaching on the doctrine of the Trinity, so I was getting into the eternal begottenness of the Son, the procession of the Spirit. I was getting into the weeds of Trinitarian theology, and he was doing an excellent job. But he told me after, or maybe it was after the Sunday school time, because I preached 2 sermons for him, that I didn't ask him what to preach. I just said, I'll preach on the Trinity. You know me, I like preaching on the Trinity. And so I preached on that. He said that was very helpful for our people because we have people coming from Jehovah's Witness backgrounds and different things, and very helpful to be shored up on the Trinity. He wanted my notes because he wanted to translate it to send to the people. So that was very encouraging, just how, even though I didn't ask him, in the Lord's providence, it was something that the church needed to be more equipped in, to defend and know the doctrine of the Trinity. And then, so obviously, me and him, me preaching, him translating, me and him after the service, and then all of us together. So this is his wife, his 2 sons, of course, Elizabeth and myself. And so us being able to enjoy fellowship with them, which was a real blessing. And then his dad and mom had us over for lunch on the Lord's Day. So that was really nice. And so, yeah, it was just a great time. Really, what was really nice as well, being able to preach for him on the Lord's Day, is he was the one who translated for me doing Bible distribution. So we already had a little bit of a rapport, a little bit of understanding. Felt like we clicked super quickly. And so it was nice to not only be able to do it on Thursday, but also on the Lord's Day. So we already were in sync, knowing how to do it. And again, he was a phenomenal translator and what was helpful is he's a pastor, so he knows the theological concepts, he knows the theological verbiage, so it's not someone who just knows the language. He also knows Christian theology very, very well. He actually went to college in Tennessee, so he went to school in Tennessee, so he lived in the U.S., and I'm pretty sure that's where he met his wife, in Tennessee at the school there. So very, very good time there. Really enjoyed that opportunity to preach there.
Brother, was that your first time preaching with a translator?
It was not.
Okay.
But that's a great question. My first time was actually in Indonesia. So I went on a ministry trip there in 2019, I believe it was, and got to do a lot of preaching there through a translator. And so I had an idea of how it worked. And then when I would preach at the family conference at Norbergen or their youth conference for Pastor Pinheiro, they don't do back-to-back, but you do have translation, but they do it simultaneous, but a different type of translation, which is probably harder, but that's how they do it. And so, so this was my second time doing the back and forth with the translation. So that was helpful, that I had a general idea of how it worked. So, it was very good. And like I said, because he did it so well, he made it easy for me, which was nice. Any questions about the Lord's Day, what Pastor Luke did, what I did, the churches, the people?
I want to go back to the family conference.
Sure.
You didn't spend much time there. Was that well attended, and what was the kind of the scope or outreach of that? Was there like churches coming in from some of the other Reformed Baptist churches also attending that?
Yes, so it was well attended. I think they had 80 people signed up, so maybe at the end it was 80 to 90 people, and they had a dinner afterwards for the people. So yes, it was well attended in a certain sense, and there was people, yes, from different churches. What made it a little bit challenging, and probably to no fault of anybody, but Heart Cry scheduled a pastor's conference the same time, and so they had in San Jose a pastor's conference with a brother named Ryan Bush, and so their men were down, and so some of the men that maybe would have came were tied up with that. And so that did cause probably a little bit less, but it was a very good turnout. And again, the preaching was from Pastor Chris on husband and wife roles, and then from the deacon on family worship. And so the real focus was equipping the families of what it looks like to have a godly home and what it looks like to raise your children in the truth. So that was the real focus. Any other questions on that or anything else? I think I maybe have one more slide. Yeah, I have one more slide. All right, let's see. So then this was Pastor Chris Law. He preached at the church in Liberia both morning and afternoon. So they did it morning fellowship meal, afternoon service. And so he was, of course, translated, and he was able to preach both morning and afternoon. We were away, and we got there late in the afternoon, so I can't remember. I think in the morning he was preaching Psalm 78, so again, the family theme of raising your children in the truth. And then in the afternoon, we were there for a little bit, but it's slipping my mind exactly what he preached. But that was on the Lord's Day, him preaching for the church in Liberia.